It is just a huge honor for me today to be sitting in Sydney, Australia, right by the harbor, with everyone's mentor and idol, David Penn. How are you doing?
Hi, Howard. How are you?
My God, you are the busiest guy on earth. Let me read his bio. David Penn, BDS MBA, grad dip aesthetic ortho sequential linotherapy. He is currently the head of school of the postgraduate school of dentistry. He graduated from the Sydney University Dental School and commenced practice in Sydney's eastern suburbs. He trained extensively in the United States under Ron Jordan and Golden Christian, two of the world's leading aesthetic dentists. And in 1983, he established Southern Cross Dental Laboratories, which has grown to become regarded as one of the leading state-of-the-art dental laboratories in the world. In 2006, he released a book, A Guide to Impressions, Implants, and Indirect Procedures, which has been used by undergraduates and experienced dentists. 2 more editions of the book have been produced, the latest in November 2014. He also was responsible for the research and development of many unique dental appliances and devices, including the Penn Composite Stent, the Atlas Cabriolet Orthodontic Retainer, and developed a series of accelerated orthodontic devices, which in 2015 received a prestigious grant from the MSW Department of Innovation. Dr. Penn also graduated with a graduate diploma of Aesthetic Orthodontics, Sequential linotherapy, and holds accredited certification in training and assessment. He lectures and teaches extensively, principally in the areas of aesthetic orthodontics and facial aesthetics. He has taught more than 1,500 postgraduate students in the use of sequential liners and aesthetics, and in January 2015, he wrote a complete curriculum and gained Australian government accreditation for a unique formal postgraduate qualification in aesthetic orthodontics. Dr. Penn established Australia's first government-accredited private dental school, the Postgraduate School of Dentistry in 2015, and currently has 40 students enrolled in the postgraduate program. He has also published articles and CPD programs in orthodontic journals, including in 2016, U.S. Orthodontics and the American Academy of Aesthetic Orthodontics. In 2015, Dr. Penn featured in the NBC Universal TV series Changing Faces, together with Dr. Michael Zachariah, plastic surgeon, which showcased the latest aesthetic dentofacial procedures and presents a unique Australian interpretation to aesthetics. The Real to Life 6-part series delves into the lives of patients with unique and compelling reasons for a medical transformation and the journey of a doctor and patient to get there. It is not just vanity that is being satisfied. We see the doctors helping people to make the most of themselves and live a life full of confidence inside and out. My God, you are just an amazing man. I could go on and on and on. Your bio goes about 40 days and 40 nights. My first question, I have to ask you, if your name is David Penn, are you related to William Penn, the founder of the state of Pennsylvania?
No, but I'm related to Sean Penn.
Are you related to Sean Penn?
Yeah, so our grandfathers, basically his grandfather went to New York. They were sort of actually originally from Russia, and they went to, from Lithuania, they went to New York, some went to South Africa, and some went to England and then on to Australia. So we're actually second cousins. So, yeah, and sometimes people sort of
So
say,
are you and Sean Penn Quakers?
I'm not. I'm certainly not a Quaker, and I don't think he is either. But
no. do you eat Quaker oatmeal?
So I have when I was a kid, but that was a long, long time ago. I don't even know who was president then. It was probably...
Yeah, that was a long time ago, man. What was that guy, Quaker? He was William Penn. That was 1640 to 1718.
Yeah.
The founder of Pennsylvania. I wanted to start off with orthodontics always remind me of airplanes. I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, which has made more airplanes than any city in the world because it made, Cessna, Boeing, Beech, all the small ones. And it seems like airplanes, they reached a certain speed of about 550 miles an hour, and decade after decade after decade, they got bigger, they got fancier, they got whatever, but they still just kept going 550 miles an hour. And braces seemed like they got all this fancy stuff, but it was still 2 years.
Yeah.
But it seems like just recently you start seeing accelerated orthodontics where maybe they're going to break the sound barrier, and instead of doing ortho in 2 years on everyone, it might get down to a year. What do you think about all this?
Yeah, look, it's
accelerated ortho.
I think the whole orthodontic realm is changing sort of really, really significantly. I'm a general practice, certainly in Crown and Bridge. That's really where I sort of cut my teeth on material science and Crown and Bridge. And then Align Technology approached me about 2005, and they said, look, what do you think of this Invisalign system? How do you think it would go in the GP market? And when I saw this thing and I saw the implications and the possible things we could do with it in general practice in particular, it piqued my interest, and I said, yeah, I'd really like to learn about this. So I went in this intensive learning program for a couple of years and basically stopped being really delving into the crown and bridge thing and doing a lot more in ortho, and I started to see the value in clear aligners, not from just a pure ortho perspective, but from a general practice and being able to move the teeth into the best position so you could do all the other augmentation as far as colour, as far as shape, symmetry, gingivoplasty, and all the facial things that went with it. I started to see this incredible possibility with these aligners. And back then, I must admit that I thought that Align Tech was a great company, but it was more of an art than a science. When the science started to come in and they started to really understand what they were doing rather than this hit and hope type scenario, and they got these attachments and IPR and very sophisticated materials, the acceleration that you talk about started to occur. And we started to see people being able to move teeth very accurately, very easily, very painlessly, and very quickly. And I thought to myself, wow, where is this all heading? And of course, the orthodontists who had been, as you talked about, been using traditional wires and brackets for so long, were very threatened by this technology. Today, it's accelerating not only the tooth movement, but the rate of uptake of clear aligners and sequential aligners. Is the uptake and the number of copycats to Align technology is burgeoning. And you probably heard about the Smile Direct Club, and that sort of model. If somebody would have said to me, my God, do-it-yourself orthodontics, and here is a pot of PVS putty, and take your own impression, that sort of stuff, I mean, it just freaks me out. But nevertheless, I think the interesting thing is the Gen Z, the kids who are born, say, 1990 to 2005, their expectation is they want it now, they want it quickly, they want it inexpensively. And they're impatient. They want things to happen. So the days of putting these wires and brackets on and putting these great forces on and seeing what happens, etc., and the inconvenience and the discomfort and the pain, I think that's long gone. So disruptive technology. I love disruptive technology. I've done lots and lots of that with sleep apnea devices, and I've done so many things like that. That Align Tech have got this incredible product, and with a number of competitors, you're going to see competition burgeoning. And I think that orthodontics is going to get to a stage where you'll push the physiological limits. Obviously, there's like, how fast can a man run 100 meters? And we remember when Jesse Owens ran in the Berlin Olympics, you thought, wow, 9.98 or 10 seconds, whatever, and nobody can beat that. And then when you've seen this guy, this Usain Bolt run there, you think, well, that's getting down to 9.5, and you think, well, what are the human limits? And you sort of think, I mean, you can't get it down to zero. So how far can you go? And I guess with orthodontics, how quickly can you move teeth? So I think there are physiological limits. There has to be, because there's a cellular interchange with bone, etc. But the marketplace now is determining and putting pressure on us as healthcare professionals to say, it's the old days I'd walk in and say, we'll tell you what you want. Now they come in and they say, this is what I need. And we're seeing a huge change, and it's a paradigm shift. And to be able to survive, these young kids in dental school now, they're going to have to listen to what their patients want and be able to deliver. And to me, a successful company, whether it be in orthodontics or implants or whatever, they're going to have to come up with the goods. So I think we're seeing a big paradigm shift. And I don't think it's only in dentistry. I think it's in a lot of the healthcare professions. So it's an exciting place to be.
So Invisalign, which is owned by Align, they actually invested in Smiles Direct.
Yes, 17% as far as I know is concerned.
Yeah.
And it's doing very well. I was surprised. When I first heard about it, I spoke to the guys at Align, I thought, surely, why would you get involved in something, to me, which I don't say cannibalizes, but even bastardizes their sort of this brand name of theirs, having the best of this and with a direct-to-consumer model. But I think they're going to get away from the original model of just sending pots of putty and saying, do your best. You can imagine what the impressions are like. Even getting a dentist to take an impression, or an orthodontist or somebody to do that, is hard enough, let alone saying to the patient, well, look, here's your pot of putty, load your tray, and good luck. I think they're moving towards the scanning centres and things like that, which is a model.
How long have you been teaching orthodontics?
About 10 years now.
And are you an orthodontist?
No, but I've got a postgraduate qualification in Aesthetic Orthodontics, which is a new brand of orthodontics. So I've basically done the same amount of training, but I've been trained in a new realm of orthodontics. So the classic orthodontists look at what I'm doing and all my students, and they think, well, what is aesthetic orthodontics? And it's very different to traditional orthodontics. Traditional orthodontics is more like a 12-year-old kid comes in with a whole pile of crowding. We're going to pull 4 teeth out, and we use the angles classifications and those older style modalities. What we're doing is what's called a soft tissue paradigm, when we look at patients' faces, and we're treating adults and mainly women. Now, I don't mind treating only women. I think I'm in a very great place to be, because we enhance the way that they look, and they come in, they don't want the molar relationships changed. They just want to look good. And that's a completely different game, Howard. It's a totally different game to the way that what the orthodontists, or what they're treating with teenagers. And it's very difficult for a classically trained orthodontist to really comprehend what we're trying to get at. They don't care, for instance, if there's a crossbite. Posteriorly, they don't care if there's certain things aren't perfect, if there's a rotated tooth. They want the anteriors to look good. They want the colour to be right. They don't want to show too much gum. They want the lip profile to be right. Very, very different. And I'm a strong advocate, and that's why I wrote this course, because I think that's where the future of dentistry is for a lot of younger people.
Does that mean you're also doing Botox and dermal fillers? Or?
I've been trained in it, and I do a little bit of Botox, but to be honest, I find it to be such an area where you need a high degree of expertise, in my opinion. When I go to Miami, when I go to Florida, and I see certain parts of the US in particular, I see some of the, how can I sort of say, the cases which are not aesthetically ideal. You know, the trout mouth, we call them, the pumped up lips. And we sort of see that, and I think a lot of people can be irresponsible and not really follow the anatomic and the aesthetic guidelines that we certainly teach, and so hence I pass this off to sort of certain healthcare professionals who really know what they're doing in that respect.
One of the best movies, Breast Men. So Breast Men came out in 1997, and did you ever see that movie?
No.
Everybody listening should go back. It was one of the who was the guy from anyway, it was the guy from Friends, David Schwimmer.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And Chris Cooper. But anyway, it goes back and talks about the story of when silicone breast started, and that was one of the problems, because it started down there in Texas. It was a Texas medical resident, David Schwimmer, who's played by David Schwimmer, and a plastic surgeon, Chris Cooper, present their invention, the silicone breast implant, to Dow Corning. And it was an interesting thing where in Texas they were placing them 5 times bigger, like 500 cc implants, where in other conservative parts of the country it'd be 200. And I see that in like this Dermafill lips. I mean, you go to Hollywood and you go to Palm Springs, and the lips, they almost look like they're cartoons.
Yes. Yeah.
And I also wanted to ask you about that, because when you look at whitening, like in the United States and the Middle East, it's just Clorox white paint.
Yeah. And
then when you go to Europe, a lot of people feel that doesn't look natural.
And you go to the UK and it doesn't happen at all.
I know. And so what is it like in Australia? Is Australia more US, UK, Europe,
I think
Middle East?
I think we're a nice sort of combination. So Howard, the interesting thing you talk about here is that we teach in the school that if you're going to renovate somebody's teeth and their dentition, you're fixing only part of the house. It's like you've got to renovate the whole house. Otherwise, because we're seeing a lot of scenarios where patients come in, they've got a 30-year-old dentition with white teeth, everything in perfect position. The lips have been pumped a little bit, so they've got a young woman's mouth. So the lower third is there. Yet, they've got these deep nasolabial folds. They've got crow's feet, which looks like Tiger Woods has played 9 holes on them. And you've got these really, really big rhytids sort of on their forehead. So you've got 50-year-old, 45-year-old, and 30-year-old dentition. Now, to me, that cries out of being unnatural, and we teach our students, so if you're going to renovate, you've got to renovate the whole house. You can't just go in bits and pieces. You can't just do the kitchen and the bathroom because everything else. So we see this very much, and so it's an expression that I use a lot about renovating the whole house. I guess you'll see in Australia what we tend to do is it's a very natural thing where we may do a little bit of lip stuff, we may get rid of some wrinkles, but we won't over bleach the teeth. We will sort of take it, but it's very fresh. It's very a healthy look, and without going to, as I said, some of the California sort of and the Miami sort of looks, which we find sort of sometimes are somewhat disturbing. I am very brutal with our patients. We teach our students to do PowerPoint presentations, and we actually show them the patient's face, and we pick out bit by bit and say, this is what we think you need.
Well, it's kind of like a bridge versus a sinus lift and implant. I mean, the dentist have a religious mindset towards the god of odontology, and they don't want to file down a second bicuspid and a second molar, so they think a bridge is horrible, so they want to do a sinus lift. And my ENT friends in Phoenix and these rhinologists, they have hundreds of cases where these have or have failed, white Candida infection all over the sinus, and they're telling me, why don't you leave my damn sinus alone and file down 2 rocks and do a 3 in a bridge?
Yeah.
And why are you? So their sacred cow is the sinus, and they're telling me some really interesting things. We're trying to get a course built, like people in Phoenix who said thought they've had allergies for 20 years, and they finally get into him, and he goes in there, and it's a root canal on the first molar, and no one did MB2 or it was failing. It's been draining into the sinus for 20 years, causing all these sinus problems, and failing implants and sinus stuff. But anyway, it just depends on what the patient wants. I mean, so one of the first implant cases I ever did in 1987, this lady owned one of the biggest pizza restaurants across the street from me, and I sent them to the greatest lab tech in all of Arizona. His name was Matt Roberts, and he charged me like $350 a unit. He was up in Idaho. Took like a month to do them. They were the prettiest teeth I'd ever seen in my life. I put them in there, and she cried because it was all natural, it just looked stunning. She wanted chiclets. Yeah. I had to cut every one of them off, took impressions, sent them to Glidewell at $99 a piece, at the whitest shade they had, which in 87, that was before the bleaching shades, and put them on there. They looked fake at 10 feet, 100 feet, a mile away, and she just absolutely loved them. Yeah. And she had the long fingernails, and she had the, shell. Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's interesting. So where does that, I always sort of say, where does that attitude come from? Like, where did the attitude of your patient cohort come from? See, in Australia, when we did the NBC program, the Changing Faces thing, it was interesting because we showcased what we believe was what the Australian public wanted as far as aesthetics are concerned. Natural, yet clean, yet tidy, symmetrical. There was a whole sort of things we know. Now, where's that come from? The outdoor lifestyle, the sporty lifestyle, the mix between American culture that we get, a little bit of European, a little bit of UK, all rolled into one, and you come up with our philosophy. So we produced that series because we wanted to showcase to the rest of the world what our attitude towards aesthetics is. When I go to the UK and I give them some of these courses, they look at me like I'm from another universe, not even another planet. It's like, oh my God, we wouldn't even think about that stuff because we don't really care about colour, we don't really care about morphology. It's just a completely different mindset. So when I go to the UK, it's very different to when I go to for instance, in Florida.
But you know what? When you go to Poland, 98.5% of the people are Polish. When you go to Vietnam, they're all Vietnamese. You go to Korea, they're all Korean. You go to Japan, they're all Japan. But when I was lecturing in Melbourne yesterday, I said, raise your hand if you weren't born in Australia. It was like 85% of the hands went up. It's that way just in Australia, America, Canada, UK. I could see how there could be like a look in Vietnam when the 90 million people in Vietnam are almost all Vietnamese. But I think it would be very hard to find a look in a melting pot like Australia or the UK or the United States when everybody's from another
But
country.
can I sort of say that you probably sort of it would have been a little bit skewed because the dental schools in Australia are full of East Asians and Indians and from the subcontinent, etc., etc., because they've studied very hard. It's very hard to get into dental school in Australia, extremely difficult, and only the most studious ones tend to get in, and a lot of those are East Asians. They're very clever, they're very motivated, they're hardworking, they're wonderful people, they add incredible value to our country. So when I teach, it's exactly the same thing. I walk into a room, there might be 30 there. My daughter yesterday, who's studying a double degree in engineering, she's 22, she gave her first lecture in engineering design because she topped the school in engineering design and it was a subject they asked her to be a lecturer. She said, "Dad, I came home, there were 60 students in the lecture theatre. There was one white girl. One white girl out of 60. Now that shows you."
That was your daughter?
No, she was doing the lecture.
Oh.
But she was lecturing. She's 22 and she's lecturing to these kids who are 18 or 19. There was a first professional that they've actually given a tutoring role at the university.
So your daughter is a double engineer?
Yeah, she's doing 2 degrees in engineering at the moment.
What 2 degrees in engineering?
She's doing manufacturing and mechanical engineering. And
So what is your favorite engineering joke?
I can't repeat it.
No, you can't. It's Dentistry Uncensored.
Unplugged. No. I really couldn't. But she
Because you can't remember it, or it's that bad?
it's that bad.
Well, if it's that bad, we can get it out.
We'll talk about it after we finish all this.
Can I tell you my best engineering joke for your daughter?
Sure.
So there's basically 3 kinds of engineers. If you plug it in, it's electrical. If you don't plug it in, it moves. It's mechanical. And if it doesn't take electricity, it doesn't move. It's a civil engineer, like a land or a building. So the 3 engineers are sitting around the table, and he says, God must have been an electrical engineer. Because look at the human, it's all electricity. The brain, the spine, the nerve, it's all electricity. And the mechanical, is this the one you're talking about?
Go on. No,
And the mechanical engineer says, no. He says, I went to a ballet, and all those moving parts, he was a mechanical engineer.
No.
And the civil engineer said, no, he had to be a civil engineer. Who else would put a wastewater treatment through a recreational park?
I like it. I like it. I'll use that one. Yeah, anyway, so what I'm sort of saying is that the reflection of the healthcare professions as far as the ethnic cohort and mix is concerned isn't a true indication of the ethnic mix through the whole country. So it's exaggerated. So when you sort of say, you might think it's more of a melting pot than it is. It is a big melting pot, but probably it's skewed, especially in the higher end faculties that are very difficult. Sydney University, Melbourne University, the most difficult dental schools to get into. They're almost impossible to get into. You've got to get these unbelievable marks in high school to get into this program and that program. It's extremely selective. And these especially these Asian girls, they're very clever, very hardworking. So but they're also very conservative by nature. And so what actually happens is the type of treatments they deliver aesthetically are also very conservative. So it is reflective. So you've got an ethnic cohort in the faculty, and you've got an ethnic cohort which is different in the marketplace, and that's hard for the universities to grapple with as well. Can you imagine Phoenix if we said to you, Howard, the school in Arizona, if 3/4 of your students were Vietnamese, how that would go then with the rest of the people who lived in Arizona? How do you think that would go down?
Well, I think that the United States is pretty comfortable with the merit-based. I know when they passed quotas, like, you had to have this many percent from mixing all the people. It was very unpopular. I think Americans, they don't like nepotism, which I think is a curse for Central and South America. I mean, if you ask anybody with a PhD in economics, like, why are poor countries poor? They always point to corruption. And they have the corruption index of the Economist, and so corruption is always the worst. And number 2 is nepotism. So the new president, who runs the airport, his cousin Eddie. Yeah. Who runs the schools, his aunt. Yeah. And America really doesn't like corruption and nepotism. So I don't know, but in Australia, are the 25 million Australians kind of upset that the faculty and the higher grads are all going to Asians?
There's a little bit of that,
I
think. But again, it's an unspoken sort of thing. People don't go and talk about it. But I feel it sort of sometimes. There's sort of that sort of yes.
We know when they break incomes in the United States, median average income, they break it out for Asian, European, Latino, and African. And Asians are, I think, 6% of the United States, but they're always number one.
Yeah.
Because there's a 1.3 billion Chinese, 1.2 billion Indians, so you're getting the cream to migrate to the United States of a huge crop. I mean, you're getting the fat that floats at the top of the milk of 2 billion people. So you just get the rock stars that move into your country.
Have you spent any time in Silicon Valley?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's always fascinating to see the smartest Indians, the smartest Chinese, blah, blah. Brilliant place. And that's why, look at the sort of the demographic there. I mean, that just reflects it perfectly.
So my homies listening, if they want to learn more from the man, David Penn, you got so many websites. Which one would they go to? Would it go to penncollege.edu.au?
The best one is the PGSD, the Postgraduate School of Dentistry.
PGST.
PG
Dental School?
Yeah, that's the one.
PG Dental School.
.edu.
So what do they find if they go to pgdentalschool.edu.au? What would they find there?
What they find is a list of our courses, of our accredited courses, and they sort of see that we have everything from CPD and CE programs and webinars all the way up to the actual accredited sort of qualification, which is it's a graduate diploma. So a graduate diploma in aesthetic orthodontics is somewhere between a master's and a PhD. It's a very high level qualification. It takes you about 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. It's very intense.
Now, can you do it all online?
Yes.
100% online?
100% online, but it's 2,000 hours of work, and you have to submit 3 complete cases. There's a lot of, we're using the state-of-the-art technology and a learning platform. So basically, if you're my patient, Howard, I have to video what I'm doing. Somebody has to take a video with their phone of what you're doing. So you're taking impressions, you're doing a consult, whatever you're doing, you have to video and you have to upload it into the school's portal. So it's totally online, but very interactive, one-on-one learning. There's a mentoring program there. But yeah, it's all online, so you don't have to, and there's no downtime out of your practice at all. So, but there's a lot of practical work. And it took us 3 years to write, and a $3 million investment to write this course. This is no joke. The Australian government are particularly tough on the getting the quality. I mean, the regulations around this thing are just insane. So we spent $3 million. It took us 3 years, and was probably one of the most difficult things that we've ever done.
And how many dental schools in Australia?
9.
And what did they think of this program?
They didn't like it at all.
Did they push back?
Oh yeah. I mean, we were threatened. They got together and they said, we don't want you, that we can't understand how the government let this through. And we went through about 12 months of angst with the government sort of deliberating. The government came back and said, guess what? This is a great school. It's private enterprise, and you're going to have to learn to compete with it with a private enterprise. And we know that our offering is just way ahead. Because I also do some lecturing in the engineering school at the New South Wales University in entrepreneurship. And so I teach that, and I sort of know what platforms they've got, and we know our school is just way ahead. So we're very proud of what we've done. We think it'll be very popular in the US. We're just undergoing this ADA CRP thing as well. And
for the ADA seal of approval?
Yeah.
Is that the CERP?
Yeah, but that's not so easy to get.
I know, we have to do it every 3 years for dental.
So we're just about through there at the moment. But yeah, we're very proud of our offering. It's state of the art. And we know this is what we believe for the general practitioners, the biggest growth area in general, what we believe is the biggest growth area in general practice. Aesthetic orthodontics. So I'm not talking about traditional ortho with wires and brackets. I'm talking about clear aligners where you can just do, basically, you can do a lot of stuff these days.
Well, the best marketing for these institutes is you've got all this material. You should put some courses on Dental Town.
Well,
and then they'll fall in love with David Penn. I mean, like Warren Buffett says.
Could they love me more than they love you?
Absolutely.
That's hard to believe. Ryan, what do you think? Is that possible? I mean, this is the man. I mean, I am privileged. I'm in the presence of God here. It's like, seriously. I mean, what am I doing here? I'm in Sydney, Australia, in the middle of nowhere, and this guy's come, all the way across here, and I feel very, very flattered that I'm actually with this great guy, because You know, everybody knows you, and I mean it. I'm not just blowing smoke, where the sun don't shine. I think, I've read, so you've done so many fantastic things, and I think great.
Well, thanks for that. But Warren Buffett, they said, he owns a third of Coca-Cola. And he said that the reason he owns a third of Coca-Cola is because he said if you gave him $1 billion and told him to build, like, say, David's Cola, he said $1 billion of the marketing, I couldn't get 1% of Coca-Cola's market.
Yeah.
And so he said the most important thing is the brand.
Yeah.
You want to be Coke, you want to be Nike, you want to be Mercedes-Benz. So
I want to be Howard.
So putting some courses on Dental Town.
Yep.
And get everyone to know who David Penn is.
That'd be great.
That'd be the most powerful marketing.
That'd be
I
great.
want to ask you about sequential liner therapy. Is that the same as clear liner? I mean,
Yes. Yeah. But
so are all sequential? So is sequential liner therapy? Are those all clear? Is that like a synonym for clear liners?
It's the idea of Zia Chishti, the guy who started, who invented it.
Who's this?
So align technology, the whole idea of actually moving teeth with clear aligners. With a piece of plastic, it was first thought of in 1947. It was an accident. Some guy left a denture overextended and it moved the tooth. And the guy said, "Gee, how did this happen?"
That was 1947?
Yes, a guy called Kesling. It was a complete accident. But what actually happened was in 1998, these two young kids, Zia Chishti.
Yeah, Zia Tish.
Yeah. So Zia was the one.
Is he a friend of yours?
Well, yeah, I know the guy.
I've been dying. It's Zia T-I-S.
No, Chishti. Chishti, I think his name is.
Spell it again.
Chishti.
S-H-T-I.
No, C-H. So
C-H-I.
S-T-H-I.
S-T-H-I. And what's his last name?
Yeah, that's it. His first name's Zia, Z-I-A. And his surname is I think it's C-H-I-S-H-T-I, I think.
Z-I-A.
Yeah, is his first name.
C-H-I-S-H-T-I. And now, is he in Dallas?
Don't know where he's
Did he start off in Pakistan?
He's a Pakistani guy, yeah.
Yeah, Pakistan.
And he did, I think he went to Stanford, and he did a computing degree, and he and his girlfriend, they were having orthodontic treatment, that there's got to be a better way to do this. And these guys came up with all the algorithms.
So then he started Invisalign.
Yep.
And then how did he get booted out of there? Or what happened there?
Well, yeah, what actually happened was, as far as I know, and don't take this, but this is what I've been told, is that he was running the company for about 5-6 years. They did some big capital raisings. There was a little bit of conflict in the boardroom. And then he went and started another company, and they bought him out, and I think there was some litigation.
And what was that company called? Clear Connect?
Yes.
So Clearline bought Clear Connect?
Yeah, I think they paid them out. I think it was like, I forget the number now, but yeah, they bought them out. There was again, you should sort of check this carefully, the chronology of events. But yeah, there was a lot of litigation early on.
Right.
And the company didn't really get going until the early, probably about 2005. I said I got involved because they asked me to see what we could do with the general practitioners and as far as accreditation courses were concerned. Because we had Southern Cross Dental Laboratories then, that's the big company that I'd sort of built.
Now, is that laboratory only for clear aligners?
No. That's a general dental laboratory, which was based. We worked with a big company in China, the laboratory in China.
Was that Modern?
Yes. Yep.
So your lab was an extension of Modern Dental?
We were partners.
Wow.
So Godfrey Nye and I did it in the UK, in Ireland, New Zealand, and in Australia, and we built up a pretty massive lab. I think you've met Godfrey.
Oh yeah, I love Godfrey.
Yeah, so Godfrey.
You know where that name comes from?
What, Godfrey? No.
You know where that name is?
No.
So I said to him one time, I said, Godfrey, I said, is that your first name or last name? And he starts laughing. He goes, "Oh, you Westerners." And he said when we were in first grade, they told us that Western people would never be able to say our name.
Yeah.
So we got in the line and we came up and there was a box and everybody in the first grade
Wow.
picked a name. That would be your name you would tell your Western friends.
Wow, I didn't know
And
that.
he picked out his name was Godfrey, and I said, "So what's your real name?" And he's like,
SK.
"Hiya." I go, "Okay, Godfrey."
Yeah. No,
He's a heck of a man.
Yeah, no, he was.
What a legend.
So I met him, we both met at the Hong Kong University in 1986, and we started working together, and it took us a long time to get
And what is that university called in Hong Kong?
Yeah, it's the dental school, University of Hong Kong Dental School.
Yeah, but it's called something else.
Not that I know of.
But you know the genius part of that dental, you know why that's in my opinion, the number one dental school in the world?
Well, mainly because they got so much money, because philanthropy sort of feeds that school.
Well, I mean,
like
in
you
the
wouldn't believe.
United States, we would not have hygienists if they closed down the hygiene schools.
Yeah.
And back in the 70s, they closed down all the Crown and Bridge schools in America. There's only like 2 in a country with 1/3 of a billion people. And in Hong Kong, that dental school has more dental laboratory students than they do dental students. And that's where Godfrey gets so much of this talent, because he has an endless pool of highly trained,
Absolutely.
certified dental lab technicians
that's
to
how-
come work for him at Modern Dental.
That's how the whole thing sort of, that's when we back in 1997.
And of your 9 dental schools in Australia, how many of them have a CDT program for certified dental?
They're probably most of them do, but they have the standard is very poor generally, and it's not a burgeoning industry, because manufacturing in Australia is very expensive. Our labour costs, our rent costs are extremely high here, and so the reason why our laboratory was so successful is because Godfrey and I leveraged off the sort of the high quality cheap labour in China, and we could make an incredible product for not very much. I remember when I came to the marketplace the first time, the local laboratories, and this is no joke, were selling crowns to the dentist between $200 and $250. The first time, our first group that Godfrey and I bought in cost me $11. Now I sold them for $36. I couldn't sell them. Nobody took me seriously, because the differential between $250 and $36 was so great. So somebody told me, double the price. So I put them up to $90. They sold like hotcakes. I couldn't sell them fast enough. We got to the stage where we were making like more than 1,000 crowns a day for a small country of 25 million people. So we got we got it right, and Godfrey had incredible quality, incredible consistency. We had great lines of supply. I wrote a tracking system which allowed us to sort of keep an eye on the whole thing, and then we bolstered it with education. We wrote books on crown and bridge work. We supplemented, we lectured it, and it was a great success. And it's now listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. I got out of I sold my share the last share about 2 years ago.
Why did you sell?
I think we hit the sort of the pinnacle of the value chain, and I really wanted to go on to sort of do some other things.
That's where you got your $3 million for this project?
Yeah, I got a little bit more than that, but we don't need to go into that.
But you've invested $3 million in your new project.
Yeah,
you just said earlier.
Yes, yeah, very much so. But I divested. I'm into all sorts of other things.
Did you ever think about, instead of investing $3 million in this new postgraduate deal, of just getting a divorce?
And give away half my fortune? No, I've got a wonderful wife.
What made you want to keep your wife and instead of and build a program instead of just going?
Howard, I know
what happened?
It may be strange to you in the US, but I actually love my wife, and she's my best friend. And
wow, that is.
And she's actually the managing director of the largest menswear chain in the country in Australia. We've got 196 stores. 196.
And she's the manager of that?
Yeah, she's the managing director. And
what's
I've
the
actually got a
menswear?
role there as well.
Well, you look pretty fancy yourself. Is that
thank
all
you.
stuff from her store?
Absolutely. But I've actually got a role there where I sort of spend about, I work there about maybe a dozen hours a week, and I'm the CAO of the company. It's a chief agitation officer. So I'm serious. What I'm responsible for is innovation, and basically disrupting everything to try and sort of improve the systems in the place. So I love disruptive technology, and I've done it. I'm doing it. I'm involved.
In disruptive technology, I mean, Americans are pretty upset that that the American children owe $1 trillion in student loans. It's starting to make an impact on the housing market because this is the first generation of Americans that can't really qualify for housing loans because they're carrying so much student loan debt. And I would have to tell you that I think education has used the least amount of disruptive technology ever since the computer generation innovation in the 80s. Yeah. It seems like so many companies in free enterprise went paperless. There's only two industries that really didn't touch that, and that was government, education. I mean, you still have this mindset where a teacher wants to stand up there and talk to 30 kids when it seems like by now they should all be on modules learning at their own speed.
Well, so Howard, that's exactly in the learning platform that we've derived. There is, for instance, we don't have any slides on our PowerPoint presentation with text. It's all imagery. Everyone is imagery and with a voiceover. So it's got audio and it's got video and it's got imagery. So I refuse to put a data dump onto a page that's just full of text. All I do is show an image and we'll talk to the text, we'll talk over the text and we'll point to it. So to not the text, to the imagery. And we believe that's an incredible platform because we believe people learn far more effectively from visual imagery and audio imagery than just pure text. So that's where we spent all this money on this new type of platform. Now, when I go back to the other traditional universities, and they say to me, well, they can't understand how we're accredited. They couldn't even comprehend what we've created. So artificial intelligence, business intelligence, we're throwing into this realm, and it's a really exciting place to be. But it takes a lot of work, and you've got to have a lot of great people around you. A lot of really good help, and you know what that's all about. To do what you've done, you've got some great people around you. You need that, and I'm very proud to sort of say the same thing. I've got a tremendous team, all hand-picked. People in Ireland, people in the UK, people in Florida.
People in Ireland.
Yeah, I've got some really good people there. So I'm very careful.
I'm 100% Irish.
100%.
Yeah. Wow. So do you think Conor McGregor can beat Floyd Mayweather?
I think he can.
Oh, I love you even more, David. Now you're my new best friend.
I think he's great. I really do, and I think it's not just talk the talk. I think he can actually do it. I'm very impressed. I mean, what an athlete! What an athlete, and tough. I think the other guys.
The reason I think he'll win is remember Sigmund Freud, the great psychiatrist.
Yeah.
He said that the Irish were the only ones that couldn't be psychoanalyzed. we were that crazy. So maybe Floyd.
I love the Irish.
So maybe Conor McGregor's so dang crazy he might.
Well, did you see the Manny Pacquiao sort of fight against the Australian guy?
I did, and the Australian one.
Yeah, but gee. I mean, I got any of you boxing fans out there. I don't know. You sort of say is boxing rigged. I can't. I couldn't see the number of blows that Manny hit the Australian guy with, and it's just like, I don't know. It just seemed to me a bit strange. But anyway.
Well, the reason I don't think it's rigged because I know the Australian authorities. I mean, in the United States and Las Vegas, so many young agents, so many in the FBI and the deal. They would love to crack.
Yeah.
A fixed ring like that.
Yeah.
Oh, they'd be famous. You'd be on TV.
You'd also be dead.
Yeah, there's so many people. I think judges are humans too.
Yeah.
And you know what? They always told me, and I always listen to sports. If you don't want to leave it in the hands of the ref, knock him out.
Yeah.
So and Manny Pacquiao is famous for just doing and Floyd Mayweather. Of just doing the minimum amount of effort needed to win and score the round.
Yes, yeah.
And then if that's not the way the judge saw it.
Anyway, it'll be interesting. I think, yeah.
Let me, back to these clear liners. You talk, the first question I start off, let's go back to that. From when you and I got out of school, how ortho is going faster.
Yeah.
What do you it was standard 24 months pretty much on all cases.
But when you think about that 24 months...
How is it going fast? Is it because instead of changing the sequential liners once a month, you're changing them every 2 weeks?
Well, there was. First, a couple of things. With wires you're putting on... You've got to be very careful with tooth movement, is that if you constrict the blood vessels around, you get too much necrosis, you're going to get, what's going to happen. You're going to get root resorption, you're going to get you get pulpal necrosis. We don't want that. So we can't put too much force on. What's interesting about the clear aligners is The clear aligners put a constant low-grade force on the teeth. So instead of going like that, like the knockout punch, you've got the jab, 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 jab type sort of thing. Now, the interesting part about that is you're getting a lot of cellular interchange. So Howard, the key here is, can we actually get the cells to actually interchange faster? Howard, if I said to you, what actually happens when a tooth moves? You've got osteoclast eating bone away. Okay, on the other side, you're getting osteoblast laying bone down. So that's really, these devices that I've created, these Munchies and some of these other things that I've done, all they're doing is allowing for faster cellular interchange. Also, the devices are more accurate. These are all computer-generated movements. So if I've got a tooth, I'm not going to put a raw force in. So first of all, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that. I'm going to put an attachment on. I can change the engineering principles, and I can actually do that because it's a vector. All we're getting is a change of movement. So yeah, I mean,
have you gone down to Costa Rica where they make them?
No, I haven't never been there.
Well, but what about some of these other technologies like Excellident?
Yeah, look, there's some of them are better than others. I sort of think some of the vibratory mechanisms are work sort of well. I think some of there's things with light, but at the end of the day, I sort of think the thing that really makes a difference.
What do you like most? Go ahead. What makes it most?
No, what I'm sort of thinking is if you can get aligners that fit intimately, so the original data capture, the impressions have to be really, really great, and you have to make sure that, because Howard, the interesting part is the aligners have actually got within their design, they've got enough force to be accurate. The question is, if you use things like Munchies, the Munchies actually make sure the aligners fit really, really well. And if
the Munchies,
that's one of our products that we sort of developed a few years ago.
Talk about your Munchies.
The Munchies are a viscoelastic device. They're a piece of silicon. We made a
Munchies designed to maximize the accuracy, fit, and effectiveness of clear aligner treatment.
Yep.
I provide release from discomfort of all. Okay, so what was the vibrator device called?
Right. Okay. So we had
that was called.
There was a one. There was an Excellident one.
That's the vibrator.
You're right. Okay. So
to really just seat the trays better.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't seat the trays. The whole idea was that the agitation, the
vibration.
Yeah, well, actually accelerated the intercellular change.
For white blood cells to turn into osteoblasts.
Yeah, the whole thing that would happen is just by shaking the tooth, they were sort of saying that you're going to the increase in vascularization and change in the sort of tooth movement sort of velocity.
And that's Excellident?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Propel is.
They've got another one, sort of a similar one. We've actually.
But what was Propel?
Yeah, Propel, the original one. I think Propel actually had one of those devices where they used to puncture the bone. I don't know if you saw it.
Microperforations.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a pretty scary proposition for a patient, especially without local anesthetic. So we tried it, but we sort of thought that was a little bit too aggressive. We sort of think the vibratory one is an interesting possibility. We got a new device now combining the Munchies.
This is the Munchies?
Yeah, the Munchies are a silicon. It's a much easier device. And it just makes, what it does, it's a viscoelastic silicon. So what it does is when you bite into it, it returns the forces and it actually seats the aligners more effectively and it really gets them home. And it grabs the crown of the tooth, about 30% of the crown of the tooth, and lets the tooth really move effectively.
Who named it Munchies?
I did.
So were you stoned? You had the Munchies?
Well, when
you thought of this,
that sort of crossed my mind. And the next one we've got is called Munchies Vibe. So we've actually combined the Munchies with a vibration device. So this is the next one. We're just getting the patent out on that at the moment.
So explain what the Munchies are again. It's a viscoelasticity that optimizes forces.
It's a piece of silicon. It looks like this, like a 3-star thing. It looks like that, and the patients actually bite into them, into the grooves, and it actually engages the aligner and it engages the tooth. And it makes.
And again, you're mainly trying to seat the aligner tray.
That's the thing people don't understand. If you actually can, the aligner has got enough force in it to be able to move the tooth effectively and efficiently. But what actually happens if the aligner doesn't fit the tooth properly, it's not going to work. We make sure we get great intimacy between the aligner and the tooth, and we go from there. And we're selling these. We're selling literally thousands of these in the US in particular at the moment. We've had a great response.
Well, when are you going to make an online CE course about these?
Howard, how many hours in the day are there?
My gosh. Well, actually, that's the best hours of the day because it's so scalable. I mean, you put that course up and you can be sleeping in Sydney while they're watching it.
Yeah, no, we've got a few key opinion leaders out there who sort of love this, we're just scratching the surface yet. We know that this is going to be huge. We know these things work. We've tested them on. We actually won a grant from one of the New South Wales government, which is the state of Australia. We won this big grant. They actually supported us, which was great. So we know the thing works, and we know that we're changing aligners over every 7 days now.
So it seems like whenever I talk to an orthodontist, 20% of their ortho is clear aligners. Do you see that as a just kind of a ceiling floor limit?
Depends who your target market is. If you're going to treat adults, then I'd sort of say that it should be the other way around. 80% you should be treating with clear aligners. On the other hand, if you're treating a 12-year-old kid and you tell the kid, I want you to wear this 22 hours a day, what are the chances of that? The kid won't do it. So you put him in braces. Because
do you see that too?
Yeah, we do.
I grew up with 5 sisters. My brother wasn't born. Who lives in Sydney? My brother lives in Sydney. Have you met him?
Yeah.
Paul Farran.
Yeah.
And nicest guy I've ever met in my life. Just a hell of a guy. And but I mean, my boys would wear the same football jersey 3 days in a row. So sometimes I'd have to hide their favorite shirt. I just couldn't see. I can't see half the boys that I know wearing their clear aligners.
Well, I think that's one of the flaws in the philosophy of Align Tech at the moment is they believe that their big growth area is the teen market, but I think you're struggling.
And the other thing with the teens, they seem to really enjoy colored rubber bands, changing them for Halloween versus Easter or Christmas or
I think there's two skills.
School colors.
I think the older teens are good with clear aligners. I don't think there's a problem with that. But I think when you talk about the young kids who've had the premolars taken out, the 12 to 15-year-olds, I think you're really struggling to get a 12 to 15-year-old boy. My son was the same. He was a champion tennis player, and he'd come home from a tennis tournament and he'd go to bed in his clothes with his shoes on. And he'd be covered in sand from the clay courts, and he'd be just dirt and everywhere. And he'd stay like that for 2 days. You could smell him a mile away. So what are the chances of him actually changing his aligners over? I mean, the same chances as Donald Trump.
Telling the truth. Telling the truth. You just walked into something controversial. You just walked into a sliding glass door. You said extracting the teeth. A fanatic. Fanatics, the difference between a fanatic and someone who's really intense, I mean, it's really neat when someone's passionate about something. But a fanatic is when they won't change the subject.
Yeah.
And I want you to address, because I know my homies, and probably 25% of all American general dentists are fanatically against extraction of teeth. They just say 0. And then there's moderates like me that say, well, you can't say 0. There's no such thing as 0.
Yeah. I
mean, there's just cases where you have to extract by customers.
Absolutely.
So talk about that, because there are 1/4 of American general dentists are fanatically opposed to it. They say it's going to cave the face.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it very, very much depends on the ethnic cohort you're treating. You go to Hong Kong, and they've got these mouths, and they've got incredible amounts of double-digit crowding. Teeth which are sort of like locked out, and some really serious stuff. Now, in clear aligner cases in Hong Kong, 20 to 25% need extractions. Now, you go to Australia, which is more of an Anglo-Saxon based on an English, Scottish, and Irish backgrounds in particular. There's a big proportion of them. They've got much bigger mouths, and they've got more surface area, and the likelihood that they need extractions is a lot lower than it is the Asian cohort. So I agree with you totally. Those guys who sort of say never is stupid. The ones who say always are stupid. The guys in the middle say each case is taken on its individual merits, in my opinion, is the healthy way to go. And so again, you go to Hong Kong, very different. You go to Australia, but you go to sort of like other parts of the world where they've got these massive mandibles and they've got massive surface area. You don't need it. So again, I just think you've got to be smart, look at each case on its own individual merits. But I've seen some horrible cases where, and we still get them, where they're pulling out these on Anglo-Saxon women, and they see them at 40 and they look like they're 60. And you've seen this a million times, we all have, and you think, why did that happen? The interesting part is we can actually reverse it though now, and the orthos don't like this, because or the conventional, rather than the aesthetic orthodontics that I do, is that what we do is, if they've lost the first four premolars and their face has fallen in, we expand everything out, we create some space, not enough that you can put an implant in, but enough to give them their lips back, so there's no buccal corridors, make them look really good. I add a bit of compass on the distal of the canine, add some on the mesial of the premolar, and guess what? They love me. And we leave space, big deal. You've got a 1.5 millimeter space distal to your canines. Who cares? Because they got their lips back, and women love lips, and they like their cheeks to be full. You've got a patient for life. That's the philosophy behind aesthetic orthodontics. Angles classification and all these other these Andrews classifications of orthodontics, they said you can't leave gaps anywhere. Who said? Us as general dentists, we don't mind making gaps because we can fill them in. Orthos don't like filling gaps in because they don't know how, but we do, and we know how to we know how to fix things like that. So that's my opinion as far as the extractions are concerned. Definitely, if somebody is a fanatical says no, you can't, they're tree huggers. You can't cut a tree down. Well, sometimes you got to cut a tree down. But then the other ones who say lop all the forests, I don't agree with that either. Somewhere in between, I think, is a sensible.
And some of the orthodontists, because seriously, 30 years ago when I got out of school, there were orthodontists that I knew where everyone was a 4x extraction.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's gone to about maybe 1 in 5.
Yeah.
And even some of those 1 in 5, I get kind of frustrated with, because you'll see them do that, and it's like, okay, the person had crowns and MODs on all the teeth, and you could have taken out all the existing restorations.
Yep.
And made several millimeters of space.
Absolutely. And
so we're down here, down under. We're in Australia. Who is the most famous orthodontist in the world? Was from down here, or studying the Aborigines.
Who's that? Who's the most famous one?
Who is the most famous orthodontist down here?
Famous.
Studying the Aborigines.
Who? Beg. Yeah.
Any thoughts on him?
Well,
since we're in his country, orthodontist, studying, or not really.
Not really. I just sort of think a lot of those ideas are really so outdated. Do
you think Beg's a lot of outdated?
Yes.
And why? Why do you think that?
Too aggressive. What
do you mean?
Well, again, sort of the classical, some of the techniques. Again, we're very much advocates of removing premolars, sort of almost.
Well, in 1954, P.R. Begg analyzed interproximal attrition as a prehistorically universal mechanism to reduce tooth size.
Yep.
With modern processed diets and the virtual disappearance of constant interproximal attrition. Do you believe Begg's theory of interproximal attrition, or do you think it's not?
Well,
really?
It's interesting, because you sort of think that if with a very fibrous diet and the teeth are rubbing against each other and they're actually getting smaller over a period of time, what's the likelihood of having crowding? And the answer is obviously it's going to be far less. With today's diet, where you're eating hamburgers and soft stuff all the time, and you're not going to get that sort of interproximal reduction, and actually your mandible's getting smaller, you're going to end up with more and more crowding. So there could be something to it.
Well, but most people, Wikipedia say that it's most modern research does not back what he said.
Yeah.
But the point I want to talk about Beggs is because I don't think it was interproximal wear, but I do think the anthropologists are blowing my mind, because they're the ones where I keep, when you do Google searches for dentist, ortho, so I'm always getting all the news of any news articles that mention dentist, ortho, orthodontist, orthodontics. And the anthropologists, I've posted many on my dental scan, keep asking questions. Why do we not see malocclusion from 350 years ago to 1.5 million years ago? And the anthropologists are all saying, hey, all this malocclusion, it's a whole new deal. And like just in the last couple hundred years. And it seems like it's because these Aborigines and all, there's 100 billion sapiens have come and gone since the species started 2 million years ago. They nursed for a couple of years, and they had a very hard diet. I mean, they were chewing on bones and beets and roots and tubers. And now the first time the baby is nursing and shows any difficulty, they switch to a baby bottle and a sippy cup,
Yes.
And you look at these mothers, they feed it mush out of a jar.
Yep. Yep.
And so this face has had no force to spread the palate, spread the face.
Yeah. Yeah.
And probably what the Aborigines were doing best is gnawing on flesh off of a kangaroo bone instead of eating applesauce.
Yeah, well, I think that's very much in the vertical dimension. Yeah, I think there's... Look, the other thing is also is life expectancy. I think that's another huge issue as well, is because, you're talking about recognising crowding, in sort of what we'd say is middle age. 30, 35, 40s, 45-year-olds. They say how many... 50...
No, middle age goes at least to 54 because I'm 54.
Really?
I'm still in the middle.
Oh, I thought you were a younger generation. I thought
you're not pushing me out to older age, are you? I was born in 62.
But in all seriousness, you sort of think that's why I sort of think that you've got to look at this carefully because, life expectancy as it's... And what's one of the big challenges for dentistry today is that, our kids, look at Ryan's kids, I mean, how they're going to live to they're 120. Now, you've got to manage a dentition from the eruption of 6 through to 120. That's really challenging.
Don't tell Ryan, but I neutered him when he was asleep one night.
Right.
I wanted to stop the madness.
You know what?
He has no idea he's been neutered.
He saved you so much money. He's such a good guy. He's a forward thinker. And when you got to go and scratch, there's nothing to scratch. but it's interesting because I think this is a really big challenge. This is the whole thing, and even the discussion about where attrition. Crowding of a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, but I sort of think that there are so many challenges for us living to a ripe old age. Now, I give a lot of discussion to dentists about what actually happens when you can't see anymore, and your hands are shaking, and you're 65 years of age, and yet you're going to live to your 100, and you've got to support yourself financially from 65 to your 100. What are you going to do? Dentists aren't good at anything else. So this whole question about life expectancy, it's for in the dental faculty, in the dental world, I think it creates a lot of problems. You think about, I mean, you've got a great gig, you've got a commercial mind, and you've done some fantastic things, and I'm sure you got so much money that it's not even funny. So, which is great. But for the average dentist out there, you sort of think there's a lot of competition. How long am I going to live for? What type of dentistry am I going to be doing if I'm going to be doing it in dentistry? You sort of think at 65. What's a dentist going to do? If he's going to live to... Let's say Ryan's kid's going to be a dentist and he's going to live to 105. And at 65, he's got the shakes. Now, what does he do for the next 40 years financially to support himself? Now, that's really challenging because I ask most kids when they come into my lectures, when are you going to retire? These are 25-year-olds and they say, when I'm 55. And I start laughing. I say, you think you're going to be able to support yourself for another 40 years? Not today when you've got so much competition in the marketplace. It's not what it was 30 years ago where we could make a lot of money. Now you can make good money, but you can't. It's very, very difficult, in my opinion, certainly in Australia, to make so much money that you're going to live on easy street the rest of your life. So what does a dentist do when he's 65? And this is a challenge. So I talk about reinvention. I talk a lot about having a second career, another skill set. What are you going to do for the rest of your life? You're used to using your brain, used to being highly revered as a healthcare professional. All of a sudden, Dr. Howard Farran at 65, he's actually retired. He's got a couple of $1 million bucks. He's got some property, he's got a bit of cash. The interest rates are almost nothing. He's got to go and put it in the stock market. He knows nothing about the stock market. He goes into some dodgy real estate deals. It's not as easy as it used to be. So this whole thing about life expectancy increasing, as I said, it's not just a crowding, it's not just attrition, it's just not theories of malocclusion. This to me is like a really big challenge, certainly for dentists. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed.
So what's the solution?
Don't be a dentist. Be
an
engineer.
Well, yeah, you're right. I have this conversation with a lot of my friends that are younger. They're pushing a lawnmower. They're doing construction. They're welders.
Yeah.
My son is a cell phone tower welder, and he's only 28 years old. And he's saying, "Dad, I don't even think I could do this when I was 40."
Yeah.
And but what I've seen a lot in your field is that when dentists' hands do start to go, they switch from the blood and guts, the surgeries, the sinus lifts, the root canals, to the soft and pretty stuff, ortho, Invisalign, hygiene checks, perio.
That's why I agree 100%. I think it's like, for instance, with the clear aligners and the courses we teach, it's great for a second stage career.
Right.
Because it's not so difficult. So I get the young ones to do the scans, and they put the attachments on. What do? I do the treatment planning, and I do the talking to the patients. It works, and it works very nicely. I think it's very good. But even so, how long can you keep doing it? You know, would somebody walk in and see me at 75? I don't think so. I mean, it's hard enough to get.
Well, they actually do, because I've seen them. I've gone to several practices where the dentist was over 90.
Wow.
And spent the day with them. And what you have to realize is that I went into a practice 92. First of all, men die 5 years earlier than women.
Yeah.
So when you're a 92-year-old man, you're the hottest piece of real estate in the nursing home.
The problem is nothing
works. All of his patients were 80-year-old widowed women.
Wow.
And he would see one or two patients in the morning and then go to lunch with one. And then he'd see two or three women in the afternoon and go to dinner with one.
Wow.
And had more fun than... He was just the happiest guy in the world.
Wow.
I've seen that 3 or 4 times. So the dentists that I know that are all practicing when they're 75 or 80, their patients are the same age.
Yeah, fair enough.
And in fact, I can't... the only reason I have to keep seeing patients is just for the whining old ladies that insist they have to see me.
Yeah.
And that's I still love it. I mean, they've been treating them for 30 years.
Yeah.
But your patient gets older. But I want to ask you a very controversial question.
Sure.
In dental school, they teach the oral surgeons teach those kids extractions.
Yeah.
And they're not threatened. The endodontists teach them endo. They're not threatened. The pediatric dentists teach you how to do chrome steel crowns. They're not threatened. The orthodontists won't teach these dental students anything.
Nope.
And when they come out of school, if these kids call up their orthodontist, call up their endodontist, say, hey, I don't have any patients on Wednesday morning. Can I come watch you do molar endo? What would every endodontist say?
Fantastic.
Yeah, what would every oral surgeon say?
Fantastic.
What would every periodontist say?
Also fantastic.
What would every orthodontist say? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this audio, he just flipped me off. Why is that?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's just such a closed club. I don't know why.
That's what it is.
I don't know why. And you know, it's
club.
interesting how it's universal. We've got Japanese students, we've got people in the Middle East, we talked a lot of this, and it seems to be universal. It seems you do a 2 or 3 year post-grad degree, and I'm probably going to get assassinated by the Society of Orthodontists, but it's really interesting. It's just such a closed club, and it seems, again, it's universal. Why? I don't know. When I graduated from dental school, now down Sydney University Dental School, just down the road from here, what did I know about ortho? I knew how to refer patients. I knew what class 1, class 2, class 3 was. I knew a little bit about some retainers, but not much, and I had my referral pad. This is who I had to refer to. They kept me in the dark. There's been we've had a lot of how can I sort of say, the orthodontists look at our course and they're sort of very critical, but they don't even understand what we're doing. I'm really convinced that they understand that there's a whole new realm. This aesthetic orthodontics is very different to traditional orthodontics.
One other question. I wish you would. You should post some of these cases on. So Dentaltown has 250,000 dentists, and we have 50 forums, and one of them is orthodontics.
Yep.
And I hope you create an orthodontic online course, and you got to get your teachers to post some of these cases there, because in your signature you can have your name, your logo, your website. It'd just be phenomenal marketing. But I so many of the kids on Dentaltown, they come out of school and they say, I feel ripped off. I graduated from dental school and I didn't learn anything in ortho.
Yeah.
I didn't do one case. I didn't do one Invisalign.
It just seems universal.
So if one of my homies is listening to you and says, David, Dr. Penn, I just got out of school back last month. How do I go from I've never done an Invisalign case to I need to do one? Right. What would you tell them?
Okay, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to go and get do a very, very simple 1 or 2 day, just an introductory course, basically how to to interact with the company that's going to provide you with the aligners. But I would suggest to a lot of these kids, if they're really serious about building a future for themselves, and something that's going to be meaningful and satisfying, and get into holistic facial aesthetics, spend $14,000, spend 18 months of your time, and do our course, and you'll come out there. You'll be so highly.
How much is it?
$14,500 US. That's it.
14,500.
Yes, yep, and they can pay it off over the 18 months. So the cost is not prohibitive.
It's 14,500
for the
which
whole
would be 3 ortho cases.
Yeah, that's it.
So it'd cost you 3 Invisalign cases.
Yep.
And it'd take you 18 months to do.
Yep. And the standard's high, and the expectation of our school is high.
And how many times would they have to come to Sydney?
They don't.
So they'd never have to come to Sydney?
No, they don't have to go outside of their own bedroom, or they've got to do stuff in their own practice because they've got to submit.
Well, Sydney is a dangerous city. I mean, I almost ran over and killed by a koala bear. Have you seen going like 100 miles an hour down the street?
Okay, but it was chasing a kangaroo. But in all seriousness, the return on investment is phenomenal. Any young grad, I would sort of say, who really wants to make a serious investment in the future, come and look at our school and get involved.
And what's the website?
It's pgdentalschool.edu.au. And if you don't find value for money there, I would be amazed.
It's PG. What's the PG stand for?
Postgraduate.
PG Dental School, Postgraduate Dental School.edu.au.
Yep.
So here's what I like about ortho, implants, and sleep apnea. When you're in London, Paris, and Tokyo, the government dental insurance gives you $100 for root canal. America, Delta sets your fee, and 95% of dentists take Delta. So in all reality, 95% of general dentists are on a PPO. 88% of dentists are on 2 PPOs. 40% of dentists are on like 6 to 12 PPOs. And they're setting the fees below your cost for cleanings, exams, and x-rays and fillings. And you're not even sophisticated enough to do it. And when I go into your office and someone has a cleaning, exam, and x-rays come out, and the hygienist dismisses the patient, I stop you and the hygienist and say, did you make $9 on this, or did you lose 12? And you have no idea. And for me to even go in your office and figure it out, I got to take all your accounting and put in Excel. I got to take your practice management and put in Excel. It'd take me and my 3 bookkeepers, Lori, Stacy, it'd take us a week to figure out if you're making money or losing money. But what are the 3 things that government doesn't set the fee on? Orthodontics and Invisalign. An implant. So this is really sad, but when you go to Tokyo, Paris, and London, and you take those dentists to a bar and you start drinking, and you say, well, what do you do when someone comes and needs a root canal, a molar root canal? I mean, in America, the average fee for a molar root canal, minimum $600. A lot of them get $1,000 to $1,200, and they're running 50-60% overhead. How do you do a root canal for $100? And what do they say?
I don't do it.
You pull it and you place an implant, because the implant's $1,000 or $1,500, and then you put a crown on there. And so I've seen so many NHS clinics where the doctor says, I lose money on everything, but I pull out 1 Invisalign case a week. And when you do 50 Invisalign cases for $250,000, that's basically a salary. So basically, I make $250,000 a year because I do an Invisalign case once a week.
Absolutely.
And I think that placing implants is an intense surgery. If you love blood and guts, that's great. But Invisalign, come on. I mean, come on. You can't do Invisalign? I mean, they own 17% of Smiles Direct. You can't do Invisalign, so they're going straight to the gosh darn patient to bite in a wafer of putty, a vinyl polysiloxane. Yeah. So the patient can do Invisalign, but you can't. So invest 3 Invisalign cases with one of the biggest legends in orthodontics that I've ever known. I've been coming down. This is the 6th time I've been to Sydney since 1990. Every one of my friends speaks so highly of you. Everybody I know speaks so highly of you. But learn orthodontics because you have margin with orthodontics. What do you think the average profit margin is on your orthodontic procedures?
It's pretty high. I'd probably say 50-60%.
Yeah. It's 50%. It's half.
Yeah.
What do you think the average profit margin is on a MOD composite?
You're lucky to get 10%, I'd say.
Yeah, you'd be very lucky to get 10%, and most offices are losing money on cleanings, exams, x-rays, fillings, and posterior composites, and they don't even know it. And if it wasn't for them doing crowns and root canals, they wouldn't even be making profit. And so you want to avoid loss leaders, and you want to make some profit. And the other thing is, some of these kids walk out of school and they don't like blood and guts.
No.
I mean, I do. I'm an apical barbarian. When I do a root canal, I'm going to get all the way patency, and I want to puff a sealer out the end. I'm not one of them pulp lovers who stop a 0.5 millimeter short and make it all look pretty. When I lay a flap, I figure a flap twice as long takes the same time to heal as one half as long. I lay a flap like peel a banana. I pop that wisdom tooth out so damn fast. I love blood and guts, but half of these kids don't like blood and guts.
No, that's true.
So if you don't like blood and guts, learn clear aligners.
The interesting thing, Howard, I think you hit the nail right on the head. The amazing thing that we sort of see is once we educate them and open their eyes to see what they can treat, all of a sudden they see these diamonds in their backyard. That all of a sudden everybody comes with lower anterior crowding. All the mud with the over-erupted lower anteriors. There's cases in your own backyard you don't even know that are there. So I suggest come and learn what to look for, and then because they didn't teach you this in dental school. Howard's 100% right. The orthos won't teach you. We'll teach you for very little, and you'll get so good at this, you'll be able to do 100 cases a year, and you'll be able to buy the Ferrari that Howard's got. And then got. And he's got a Gulfstream 550. I mean, that is impressive. I mean, if you said he can sleep 13 people, I mean, Phoenix to Sydney in one go, he doesn't even have to land in Maui anymore. Although he does play for a round of golf. So this guy is a clever guy. So
So do you teach any lectures, or is it all online? I mean, do you do any lecturing programs?
Yeah, I do.
But is your program mostly all online?
Yeah. Well, the grad diploma program is all online. That's what it took us 3 years to write and to record, and all this money to sort of spend on there.
But you do some intro like 1 day or 2 days?
Yeah, we do webinars, we do some live gigs.
Do you ever lecture live in the United States?
No, I've done Europe, I've done Asia, I've done UK, Ireland, but Hawaii. I've done some lectures in Hawaii.
Do you ever want to lecture in the United States?
I'm getting too old.
Too old.
As I said, I'm happy to be online. It's sort of like that's where that's really scalable.
And what I like the most about online is so many people forget there's 2 million dentists on Earth.
Yeah.
You can't lecture to 2 million dentists on Earth.
We can try.
The only way
it's going to global domination.
I mean,
that's what he's all about.
I've lectured 1,000 times. I haven't even scratched the surface.
Wow.
1,000 times since 1990 in 6 continents. I mean, how many continents were we in last year?
A whole bunch.
I mean, basically everything but penguins.
Yeah.
Those damn penguins.
You should go down there. It's great.
I went to polar caps to
there.
melt because the penguins had never invited me to speak. So now
they are pretty cool. I took my daughter
back on those penguins that won't have me lecture down there.
I took my daughter down there a few years ago. What an experience! Really, before you guys seriously go down through the Ushuaia in South America, go down through the Drake Passage. That's a nasty piece of water if you ever want to go down there.
You went to Antarctica from South America? Yeah.
And that was a great experience.
How far are we from Antarctica here in like Tasmania?
A long way still.
Is it closer from the tip of South America?
Yeah, because you can go the Antarctic has got a peninsula, and we hit the peninsula. But that where the Indian Ocean, the Atlantic meets the Pacific, it's like a big washing machine down there. So we went on a 10,000 ton boat. I was sick for 4 days. You just throw up for 4 days, but all of a sudden you get there, it's great. But what an experience. So my daughter and I went there on a scientific expedition about 3 years ago. Best 2 weeks of my life.
You know Jeff Knight?
Yeah, I met him, yeah.
He wants to summit the highest mountain on every continent. I did the highest summit in Australia with him.
Mount
Kosciuszko.
7,000 feet. It's like a hill.
It's the shortest one.
Yeah.
It's the lowest one. And I did Kilimanjaro, which is in the middle at 19,000.
Wow.
But I want to do it. He did Antarctica.
Yeah.
And he said that was the coolest time he ever spent his life. I'm trying to get Ryan to do it with me.
You should take him to Everest.
He's trying to get me to go to Everest.
You should go. You should do it.
I'm gonna do Everest.
Next time you come to Australia, you should go to Papua New Guinea and go on the Kokoda Trail. That's a really interesting one. They still got headhunters up there. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
But you should go. That's a real experience.
Oh, the headhunters. I know. Did I tell you about my missionary dentistry trip I did in Tanzania. You know those kids who are born with vertigo, where
Vertigo, yeah.
Vertigo.
Yeah.
They're hunted by witch doctors for lotions and potions. So we went to an orphanage where they had a 12-foot wall with razor wire all around it, and they needed some dentists to come in and do dentistry on this orphanage. And the orphanage was filled with a couple hundred little kids, and they have to keep them in there until they're old enough to defend themselves from a 50, 60-year-old witch doctor.
Wow.
And the lady
Probably
was
an
telling us,
orthodontist.
the lady was telling us that they're worth what a black rhino costs,
Wow.
because those witch doctors need their body
Jeez.
parts. So yeah, they're still headhunters.
That's bizarre.
Isn't that just crazy?
Unbelievable.
And but anyway, David Penn, it was an honor that you came by.
Oh, well, thank you
Today.
for inviting me. No, it's an honor for me to be here. As I said, I'm in the presence of greatness here. So all of you young kids out there, don't forget this guy. This is a serious rooster, we call them in Australia.
A serious rooster.
Right? And as I said, everybody in Australia loves him, and it's great when he comes down to us, to visit us. And I think he feels very comfortable here, which is great, because I think we got a lot of similarities to the Americans, which are great, and we're great allies. And we love going there, and I'm sure the Americans, every time I go to the States, they say, "Oh, it's on my bucket list. I'm coming down there." It's great, and we love the Americans coming here, and we love going there. I go every year. I go with my friends. We fly to Dallas. We play some golf in Dallas, and then we fly up to Pebble Beach, and we do about a week around there as well, and that's just magic. So,
my brother moved here.
Yeah.
And I told my brother, I said, I've lectured everywhere for forever, and every single time I fly back from Sydney to the United States, I don't know why I'm flying back. If I had to pick one other place other than Phoenix to live, it'd be San Fran or Sydney. And
similarities. Yeah, look, we're very lucky. I say to my kids, you don't know how lucky you are that our ancestors actually settled here or came here, certainly from Russia and all those crazy places they came from, and lobbed into Sydney. And in the best part of Sydney, we live in the eastern suburbs near the water, and I mean, we every morning we wake up and I say to kids, you kiss the dirt. When we get off the plane, you kiss the dirt, because you don't realise how lucky you are to live in this beautiful harbour and beautiful temperate climate and politically stable. We're very, very lucky and blessed here. So any of you guys watching out there in the US, come down and visit us, and come and drop into Double Bay and say hello to me. Well, we can sort of take you around and have a look at. So we're very proud of where we live. And
be smart. 3 Invisalign case fees, and you can take how many hours?
It takes a while.
But how many hours on that?
Like
how many hours
online?
Cases? How many online CE hours are on your program?
Just 2,000.
2,000 hours of online CE. Master that, because no government is going to, in the near future, set a fee on a cosmetic procedure.
No.
Because it's hard to justify a medical need for orthodontics when the United States has 1/3 has obesity, myself included. I don't think there's any logical justification for saying, if I don't straighten this guy's teeth, he's going to die of starvation.
It's funny. We had a government scheme that was was finished about 4 or 5 years ago, where everybody, if they had a medical condition that was related in any way to dentistry, they received a $4,000 rebate. And it was amazing. They spent more than $1 billion on these rebates, and it almost drove the government broke, because everybody was claiming like you had an ingrown toenail, somehow it affected your teeth, and it was really sort of bastardized. But the interesting part was so many people had so many of the procedures, whether they're necessary or not, but that was a very intriguing one. Let's just say when the government found that it was being rorted, they pulled back on it, and it stopped.
Well, if you want more of something, subsidize it, and if you want less of something, tax it.
Absolutely.
So that's the bottom line.
It's a very wise way of doing it. So.
All right, thanks for coming by.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.